Hi, sir. Good afternoon. My name is Scott Turner. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Yes, sir.
You're the pilot of Air Force
Yes,
One?
sir. It'll be my privilege to serve you as your pilot.
You know, I got to say, you're out of central casting. You're exactly what I want the pilot of Air Force One to look like. You look like you know how to fly.
That was President-elect Barack Obama's first trip on one of the Boeing 747s that become Air Force One when the commander-in-chief is aboard. The current planes are getting old, and the Pentagon wants to buy new ones. The Air Force gave us an extraordinary behind-the-scenes access to learn how that may come about. And Mark Albert is here with the story you'll only see on CBS This Morning Saturday. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. For the first time, the military may buy 3 747s to replace the current 2. Air Force One is the most recognizable aircraft in the world. 6 stories tall, 2/3 of a football field long, and carrying immeasurable prestige.
More than hail to the chief, more than the ubiquitous Secret Service agents, even more than the famous SEAL. There is no more identifiable symbol of the mobile presidency than Air Force One.
It has come to represent the power of the American presidency, the reach of the American presidency, and it's come to symbolize American technology and America's technological prowess.
Ken Walsh wrote a book on Air Force One and has covered the past 5 presidents for U.S. News and World Report. He's flown on Air Force One about 300 times.
What is it like to fly on a presidential aircraft?
For a president, it's fabulous. When they've left office, the 4 who've left office say the thing they miss the most is Air Force One.
But under their polished exterior, the 2 aircraft that commonly serve as Air Force One are aging, now a quarter-century old. Even though both Boeing 747-200s have only flown a fraction as much as a commercial 747 of the same age, the Air Force says it's time for a new generation of presidential wings.
We've got a pretty good-sized team working on it.
Colonel Amy McCain is in charge of ordering the new Air Force One and gave CBS This Morning Saturday her first television interview.
Why does the president need a new Air Force One?
It's the only 747-200 left in the United States that is flying. So it costs us a lot more time and money to keep that airplane flying than it used to. So it's actually cheaper in the long run to replace it.
McCain's team has grown from 20 people to 80 in just the past year and will soon expand to 100. In January, the Air Force announced its intention to use Boeing's 747-8 airframe. The long-range, wide-body aircraft is made in Everett, Washington, and comes with a longer fuselage, greater wingspan, and new engines and avionics. It will be heavily modified with all the latest technological and security gear. But this symbol of America doesn't come cheap. Updated budget documents provided to CBS News by the Air Force show its request to Congress starts with $102 million this year, and the numbers quickly gain altitude, more than $3 billion in total in the next 5 years. And that's not counting the final 3 years of the project.
There are those who would say that this aircraft does not need to be replaced, that the taxpayers simply can't afford to buy a new presidential plane.
The top priority is if an affordable aircraft that will meet the presidential requirements.
How many planes are you buying?
We're buying up to 3.
What is the idea behind buying 3 instead of 2?
It depends upon all the availability of having 2 airplanes available for the president at any one time.
If the deal takes off, the current Air Force One will likely land here, the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, home to 9 presidential aircraft.
We're going to complete our 4th building pretty soon.
The museum's historian, Jeff Underwood, says the history of presidential aircraft is filled with triumph and turbulence. Franklin Roosevelt was the first to fly while in office.
This is the aircraft that carried Franklin Delano Roosevelt to Yalta in 1945. It has an elevator, an electric-powered elevator.
The 4-engine Douglas plane, codenamed the Sacred Cow, was modified for the president, who was stricken by polio at age 39. Roosevelt flew on the plane only once before his death. Harry Truman then used it, signing the act that created the Air Force at this onboard table.
And this would have been President Nixon's view.
This has been President Nixon's view.
This is the Boeing 707 that took the first American president to China and carried 8 presidents over 36 years.
And if these walls could talk,
The stories they could tell.
Jackie Kennedy approved the now iconic blue and white design, still in use today. This 707 also flew the Kennedys to Dallas and President Kennedy's successor back to Washington. The original logbook from that date, kept here, shows the one flight with two presidents after Lyndon Johnson took the oath of office in a packed, sweltering cabin.
this is where the tide of American history changes, is this very spot.
Right where we're standing.
Right where we're standing.
The headwinds of history buffeted George W. Bush aboard Air Force One on 9/11 as the plane became an airborne refuge after the terror attacks. In 70 years of presidential flight, Underwood says the unique set of aircraft we now know as Air Force One has taken the country to new heights.
This is not just the president's plane. This is the plane that belongs to the people of the United States. When you look on the side of the airplane, it tells you United States of America. This is a symbol of the United States, and we are the people of the United States.
The Air Force hopes to sign the first contract with Boeing later this year for the next Air Force One. The goal is to have the new 747s flying the president 8 years from now in 2023.
That was such a fascinating story, but you always hear that there's these unwritten rules. Did you find out, are there any when it comes to Air Force One?
We did hear that there are two major unwritten rules when it comes to buying a new Air Force One. First, it has to be in a president's second term. So President Reagan, President Obama, that guarantees that that current president it's not politics involved. They will not be flying on the plane. As you saw, it's going to take about 8 years, so President Obama will be out of office. The second unwritten rule is that you have to buy American. And so Boeing is an American company. It's the only American company that has the 4-engine, wide-body plane that the Air Force wants, and so Boeing will probably get the contract.
That's pretty cool. So who designed the exterior of the plane, the paint job?
What was so neat is that Jackie Kennedy oversaw the design of that blue and white scheme. And before that, really, the presidential planes had been more military. But then she put China on board, the artwork, and the iconic paint scheme.
Great story. Mark Albert, thank you so much.